gear seekers, I'm Nick. Lian Li and Dancase had a baby in the form of the A4-H2O. But before that, make sure you're subscribed and turn on that little bell and all that jazz. What we're going to do today is we're going to take a bit of a closer look at the A4-H2O. We're going to pull it apart, we're going to test the thermals, we're going to do all of that stuff. So strap yourself in and get ready to take a ride with me. Yeah, let's do it. All right, let's start off with panel removal. There are 4 thumb screws in total. You can either use a screwdriver or you can use your fingers to loosen them up, just depending on how tight they're done up at the factory. So these ones, luckily for me, I don't have to use a screwdriver today. To remove the panels, it's as simple as just popping off the sides and away we go. The other side is the same deal. Just pop it off. The top, again, is the same. Just push up with your thumbs. And lastly, the front, which I would recommend pulling off if you're building in this. Same deal again, you can just use your thumbs to pop it off, just like that. For power supply support, the A4-H2O supports SFX and SFX-L power supplies. The bracket to install the power supply is essentially 4 screws, which I'm showing you how to remove right now. And the power supply mounts to the inside of this bracket, and as you can see, it's got some holes drilled in it for intake for your power supply. So I would suggest having the power supply's fan oriented on this side so it pulls air into the power supply and exhausts it out the top. There's also a built-in power extension cable that plugs into the power supply in the case. Your power cable then plugs into the rear of the case with that extension piece. The A4-H2O has an SSD mount on the bottom of the case, as you can see here, and it uses screws that go into the bottom of the drive and push in to mount to those rubber grommets right there. It also includes a PCIe Gen 4 riser cable. The way you can usually tell a riser cable is PCIe Gen 4 is this side of the riser cable is more of a ribbon cable, and this is for better signaling. So I hope that makes a bit more sense to you guys. Most of the time with these risers, if you see the wiring being different on one edge, that means it's usually PCIe Gen 4 from experience. The A4-H2O supports up to a 240mm liquid cooler in the top. The H2O in the name is kind of a dead giveaway as to what this will support, and the bracket to install that radiator, or if you're doing an air-cooled system with just fans, requires you to remove 4 screws at the top here. I'm going to show you how this works really quickly. And we have a Bindi. Hello, Bindi. And then the bracket is fully removable. You do need to remove this bracket to install a liquid cooler in the case. Otherwise, there's quite literally no way to fit this in. So yeah, just take that into account when you're building with this case. There are some really basic accessories included in the A4-H2O, just a bunch of screws for mounting stuff, which is for like the SSD if you wanted to do that. There's also some cable ties and whatnot. Pretty standard stuff for these small form factor cases. Front panel connectivity is much the same as well. You've got your power switch connector, you've got USB Type-C front panel, USB Type-A front panel for USB 3.2 and front panel audio as well. Full front panel connectivity, you've got a USB Type-A port, a headphone and a microphone jack, a USB Type-C port, and the power button right up the top. To assist with routing power cables and cable management and plugging things in, this bottom panel can be removed here. Now, I'm not going to remove it right now. I will be removing it when we get to the build section of the video, but I just wanted to let you guys know that if you saw me pulling this off while I was building, it's literally for that purpose, is to help you plug things in and to route cables a bit nicer. For motherboard support, you're only going to get away with ITX boards. This is the new Z690 Asus ITX board here. This is the one that we will be using in the build. And as you can see, yeah, this is all you're getting away with here. I'm not going to screw this in right now, but just to give you guys an idea of the board you can fit in here. In saying that, if you wanted to do an air-cooled solution instead of using a liquid cooler in the top, you can use an air cooler with the maximum height of 55mm. That also goes for liquid cooler pump tops as well. It can't exceed 55mm, or it's just not going to fit in here at all. So those are two things you need to take into account. That's also something you need to take into account for RAM clearance size as well. Anything over 55 millimeters is just not going to work. The A4-H2O has this gigantic hole, which you can see here, to help feed the GPU through into the case. And if you're using a card like the RTX 3080 that we're going to be using in this, then you're going to need all the help you can get. But this is where the fun begins. This case supports up to a 322 millimeter 3-slot GPU, which means, are you ready for this, ladies and gentlemen? The ye old STRIX test. Look at the size of this gigantic GPU. Now watch at how, with a little bit of massaging, the RTX 3080 12 gig, the STRIX version of the card, will in fact, with a little bit of luck, unbelievably, this massive GPU will fit in the case. Obviously I haven't plugged it into the PCIe connector, but if I show you the clearance here, look at that. It sits right on the edge, perfectly in line with where that front panel is going to go. That is kind of amazing. I'm not gonna lie, that is insane. There is one more way you can feed a GPU in, so you don't have to go all the way through the front here. You can also go like this, like push it in through the hole, use the hole to guide it, and then put it in that way as well, just as a little bit of a tip. That's basically all you need to know about this tiny little 11-liter case from Lian Li and Dancase, the A4-H2O. But as usual, let's do a build and then we're going to test all the thermals. Ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed the build in the A4-H2O. Let's quickly take a look at the thermals here. What you're seeing on your screen right now is with these side panels on, the GPU temperatures rise quite a bit, but actually they are acceptable for a PC of this size. What I was more surprised at was actually the CPU temperature here. Just be aware though, a lot of the other thermal testing that you see is more based on synthetic workloads, whereas with AIDA64, it gives us the temperatures combined for both the GPU and the CPU at the same time, which is the way that a lot of people will use their system. So if you're gaming, you're using the CPU and GPU, etc, etc, etc. In terms of acoustic testing for systems like this, it's situational. So it depends on the hardware you've got, the cooler you're using. The GPU used in this is typically very quiet. This cooler is also pretty quiet. The loudest thing you can hear with this cooler is the pump for the AIO. Other than that, the system is pretty quiet. And most of the time with these systems, people are using headphones, so acoustics isn't really a big deal. Now, in saying that, obviously there's edge cases where acoustics do matter, but for general use, it really does not matter too much. We've moved most of our small form factor cases over to our warehouse, so we don't have much here, but what I do have here is the Cooler Master NR200. So here's a quick side-by-side comparison so you can see how big the A4-H2O is compared to the NR200, just for a little bit of context. Now, I tried to film this on an even plane, so as you can see, the A4-H2O is considerably smaller than the NR200, it only being 11 liters as well. Now that's all out of the way, let's chat about the parts. The CPU is the Intel Core i7-12700K. We put the 12700K on the Asus ROG Strix Z690i gaming Wi-Fi. To cool the 12700K, we use the Phanteks Glacier One 240 MPH. The GPU is the Asus ROG Strix RTX 3080 12 gig. And for the rest of the parts, I'll put a PC part picker list down below in the description so you can check that out at your own leisure. But what about the A4-H2O? How is it as a case? To build in for a small form factor case, this is definitely one of the easiest. I had no problems fitting this absolutely huge GPU in, as you saw through the build section. Cable management was an absolute breeze. Even routing the tubes for the AIO was very, very easy, but be aware that with this cooler, I didn't use the pump top cover that comes with it. And to be fair, you can't see inside this case, so there's no point getting any fancy RGB shenanigans going on in here. So that's why I decided to use this cooler, because I know the pump top's really low. It's really easy to maneuver, and I've used it in other small form factor cases. So take that into consideration if you're going to be building a small form factor PC like this. But overall, the A4-H2O, I gotta say it, this is easily one of the best small form factor cases that I've used, and I've used lots of them. This is up there with that Iconix case that we covered a while ago. I think it's the ZX one. I'll put a link in the description if you want to check out that video so you can see what I said about that. But I feel like this one just feels better. The fact that this also comes with a PCIe Gen 4 riser option is nice too. This configuration obviously has the Gen 4 riser. You can get it with the Gen 3 riser if that's your jam. It drops the price to around about 129 USD. And if you want the PCIe Gen 4 version, you're looking at about 165 US dollars. Now, PCIe Gen 4 riser cables are always more expensive, so that's really just how much PCIe Gen 4 stuff costs in general. It also comes in a black version, but when they reached out and asked which one we wanted, I was like, silver. Silver just looks sick, so of course we went with silver. What do you guys think about the A4-H2O? Let us know down below in the comments. Let us know all your thoughts about this case. Me personally, I didn't know how I felt about it, considering it's only an 11-liter case and they can be tricky. I know everyone loves small form factor stuff, me too, but sometimes the smaller they get, the harder they are to build. But again, that's just what you should expect with small form factor PCs, but this one was super duper easy to work with, and I applaud Dancase and Lian Li for making it really, really easy. Yeah, let us know what you think down below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you hit that button, ring that bell to get notifications and all that jazz. You guys have been telling us that YouTube's been unsubscribing you from the channel, so just make sure, double check. If you've never subscribed and you've watched all of our content, what are you doing? Hit the subscribe button. And if you like the music you heard here, I make all the music. It's available by clicking that join button. You can get it over on Floatplane and Patreon as well. Once again, thank you so very much for watching. I'm your boy Nick with Gear Seekers. You peek, we seek, and we'll do a little baby cinematic Tings today because it is a little baby case. All right, let's do that. Thanks for watching.